Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I want to talk to you about if I had to make my first $5,000 online starting from completely zero, no business, no audience, no money in the bank. Knowing what I know now, this is exactly what I'd do. Bear in mind, this isn't in 2 years. This isn't in a year. This is in a 90-day period that we're talking about. And look, before you roll your eyes, I'm not here to promise you something that you won't be able to achieve. I'm just going to tell you the path that I'd personally take. Whether you end up walking it is completely up to you at the end of the day. So let's start off with an introduction. My name's Joe. 3 years ago today, I was washing dishes in Spain, saving up to travel the world. And today, I'm able to make over 20K per month with one singular skill, and I'm able to help other people do the exact same thing as well. And to be specific, I've helped over 40 people achieve the exact same results that I have. Some people have hit 5K in less than 60 days. Some it took 90, some it took 100 days. One of those people is actually called Owen. He was able to hit 7K in a single week, only 5 months into the program. Now, bear in mind, he had no business experience. He didn't have an audience, and none of them actually had any money. But what he did have was the right skill to start off with. And he essentially learned it in the right order, with someone showing him the path on exactly what to do and when to do it. So if you stick with me for the next 12 minutes, I'm going to walk you through the exact path and the exact step-by-step that Owen took specifically to hit a month like this. I'm going to also walk you through what the skill actually is, how to get started, and the 4 exact steps you need to start taking in order to get things going. We'll also walk you through the timeline, the mistakes that kill almost 90% of beginners when they're starting off, real stories from people doing it right now, and at the end, I'll also show you how to actually get started for completely free. So let's jump into it. Before I get into the how, let me explain why 5K USD specifically, like it says in the title. Because 5K isn't just a nice round number. It's the threshold where everything really changes. And below 5K USD, every online income is just like a little side hustle. It pays for some extra things here and there, it validates that the idea is actually real, but it doesn't replace a job or change your life or set you up for the future, if we're being honest with ourselves. But what I will also say is at 5K a month, the math kind of changes, right? Because in most countries, 5K a month is a lot of money and you can live really, really nicely with 5K a month. For example, if you live in Thailand, 5K a month, you'll be living like an absolute king or an emperor, right? But if you're living in London with 5K a month, then things become a bit more tricky. So it's like, if you look at it from a different perspective, it's like, yes, you could quit your 9 to 5 and you could move to like a third world country and live off, absolutely nothing and have an amazing king lifestyle. You could travel, you could stop trading your time for money, at least the worst versions of it. But here's the part that nobody's telling you. 5K isn't where you stop. It's where everything starts to compound. Because once you've made 5K once, then you know it's actually possible. So you can essentially repeat the steps that took you to 5K to get you to 10K, and then 20K, and then 30K, and then 40K, and so on and so forth. I'll be honest with you, I haven't made like my first million or anything like that, but I can pretty confidently say that the hardest bit of money to make isn't the first million. It's that first 5K, because that's sort of the dollar that proves to your brain that it's actually possible, right? Because that's the first step, is actually rewiring your brain into knowing that it's actually true and it can happen. That's why this number matters so much to me. Not because 5K solves your life, but because 5K is the proof your brain actually needs to commit, right? So what is this skill that I am talking about? The skill is high ticket sales. And if you've never heard the term, don't worry. Most people haven't, if I'm being honest with you, but that is part of why it pays so well, because most people don't even know that it actually exists. So if I was to explain it in completely plain English, here's what it actually is. Let's take into consideration you have all of these course sellers and gurus that are selling programs online to people. Now, because they're taking a lot of time fulfilling the actual service for these people, they don't have enough time to hop on a sales call and actually sell to people, right? Because these products are anywhere from $3,000, $5,000, $10,000. So it's not something that you can just sell on a website. It has to be on a call, speaking to someone one-on-one, right? So that's where a high ticket salesperson comes in. You hop on these calls, you sell this product, and you essentially help them make a decision, guide them through a decision to get the deal over the line. And if you do, then you get 10% of the deal. And these aren't like impulse purchases. People don't just add them to the cart and check out because they need to speak to someone. They first book the call, they watch a tons of videos, they speak to a closer, and then the deal gets closed, and that's when you get paid out. And bear in mind, these are people that have already watched the content of whoever you're working for. They've already raised their hand. They haven't got their credit card in hand, obviously. That's why you're there. But they are people that are warm. They're not like typical videos you see online of people calling like insurance stuff and it being like super, super cold people that don't want to speak to you. Like, it's warm people that have chosen to book that call. What I'm trying to say is you're not selling to people who don't want it. You're selling to people who do want it, but because there's such a massive price point to it, it needs some psychology, conversational skills, let's say. So here's the math. Let's say you close a 5K deal. You take 10% commission, which is $500, right? But that's just from one call. Some calls can last 20 minutes, some can be 30 minutes, some can even be an hour and a half. It just depends. But on average, I'd say it's about 45 minutes per call. Even if you were just to close 2 of those a week, the math is technically that's a 4K month. Now, the likelihood of you being on an offer or a job opportunity where there is only 2 calls per week is super unlikely, but that's just some simple math so you understand. If you close 3 a week, that's 6K. 4 a week, that's almost 8K. Not almost, it is 8K US dollars. And here's the thing, it's not magic, right? It's an actual skill. You learn the framework, you do the reps, and you get paid for the outcome, not for the hours you work. Now, let's get into a bit of a roadmap as to how you're actually going to do this. There are 4 steps in order that you need to follow, so don't skip any. There's no point in going to the 10th minute of the video to see what's at the end. You need to watch all 4 steps. Starting with step 1 would be learning the actual basics of high ticket sales. Because you can't make money from a skill you don't even understand or even know the basics about. So before you do anything else, you need to understand first what actually is sales and how does it work. You also need to understand how does a sales call flow and just the basic frameworks behind it, essentially. And this isn't hours and hours of theory. It's just understanding 3 simple things: how a discovery conversation works, how to handle objections, and how to actually close. If you do want that full training, I've got a 90-minute masterclass that's on my YouTube, which I can leave in the description. I have like frameworks on there, real calls that I review of my own. It's literally everything you need to start, and it's pinned on my channel. So if you want, feel free to check it out after this video when you have an hour and a half free. Now, step 2 is to get someone watching you actually do this. And let me explain what I mean by that. The thing that kills 90% of beginners in high ticket sales is that they watch the YouTube videos, they read the right books, they consume the right content, and they almost think that learning is the same thing as doing, whereas it's obviously not. You learn this skill from doing reps, showing up every single day, and actually getting real feedback from someone. You have to have real calls, you need real conversations. Someone who's actually done it before watching you do it live in front of them, which is what's called a role play. And then they can give you the small things that you need to adjust in your tone, your voice, your pitch, how you're sealing the deal, how you're objection handling, all the different moving pieces. So you could go about this in 2 different ways. You could go the free route by just joining a community of people who are already learning the skill. I personally have a free community called The Inner Circle, which is on WhatsApp. I'll also leave the link in the description. You can join it. We put in real frameworks, modules, wins, job boards, tons and tons of free resources essentially to get started and start learning basically. If you want in there, you can also go in, drop questions. You can see real cool breakdowns. Like I said before, I'll just leave that in the description if you want to check it out. Now, the other option is going more of a paid route. This would be by joining a specific mentorship where someone will review your calls personally, will give you that one-on-one attention. And by the way, I'm not telling you which to choose. I'm genuinely just giving you the 2 options that you could do if you really wanted to. But what I am going to tell you is that you cannot skip this step. You need to have someone that's going to guide you. If you try and learn this skill alone, you'll just have tons of questions that go unanswered that ChatGPT, Claude, YouTube most likely can't really answer to you. You need someone that's actually been there, done that, on a call, closed real deals that can give you that real feedback. Because if you think about it, reading about sales is like reading about swimming, right? You can't learn how to swim by reading a book. You learn how to swim by getting in the pool, right? Same thing with sales calls. You don't learn how to close a deal by reading about it. You close the deal by actually being in front of a real person or a practice person and actually doing it. Now, step 3, which is probably the most important one to earn the money, which is land a commission-based role. This is the part where most people end up freezing, to be honest with you, because people tend to think they need to be ready before taking on a role. But the reality is you do not need to be ready because no one is at the start. How do you think some of the best high ticket closers there are right now in the space, how do you think they started? At some point, they were nervous. They had the same fears. They were shitting themselves before hopping on a sales call, but they did it. Now, where can you actually find these type of job boards? You can look at Facebook groups for sales communities. You've got LinkedIn for SDR roles. You've got communities that are built specifically around high ticket sales with their own job board. Now, let's look at what these offers actually look for when hiring a high ticket closer, because there's a lot of high ticket closers in the space now. They don't actually expect experience. That's the thing they care about the least. The most important thing someone cares about when they're hiring you is how hungry you actually are in comparison to the person that applied before you. They just want to know that you'll show up, you'll take feedback, you'll be an A player, you can have a laugh with the team, but you can also lock in and actually close tons of deals for the company. I think it's important to know as well, there's 2 types of roles you need to know about within the high ticket sales space. You've got setters and you've got closers. The setter is the person that books appointments through the DMs, so through the Instagram or the software the coach you're working for is actually using, and they book qualified meetings for the closers. You've got a slightly lower commission, but it's a really good idea to start off here and to understand the back end of what happens before a sales call before actually jumping into a sales role, like a closing role. Now, closers do actually take the actual sales calls. They have a higher commission, but the typical roadmap is setting first or dialing first. For example, in my community, most of the people that end up going through the training, they land their first paid role in about I'd say less than 60 days. There's like setter gigs that are super easily paying you 1 to 3K a month while you're still learning the skill of closing, because setting doesn't require much skill. It's just sending messages to people. And then you transition into closing for the bigger opportunities, basically. Now, step 4 would be actually doing the calls and reviewing your own calls. Once you're in a role, at the end of the day, the only thing that determines how fast you actually scale within your offer you're on is how many calls you take and how quickly you can improve based off of the feedback you get from those calls, either from yourself or from a mentor. So what I would always say is record every single call, review every single call, and also get someone that's a lot better at closing than you to absolutely roast them. At first, it's going to feel super brutal, just being ripped to shreds on a call and telling you this is wrong, this is bad, you could have done this better. There's always things you can do better on a sales call, by the way, so this is going to be a constant feedback loop. But it is also the fastest way to compress like 12 months of learning into like 90 days if you really wanted to. For example, my students that are on roles, on an average, they take about 5 to 8 sales calls a day. I always tell them to push for as many sales calls as possible at the start, because they're not in a position to be picky with the job offer and like take time off and, you know, go to Thailand or whatever. They just need to take on as many fucking calls as possible at the start. And, you know, some weeks they're making absolutely nothing. Some weeks they're making 2 grand. Some weeks they can make 5 grand. It's purely dependent on your ability to actually sell. But by month 3, most of the students are already at a point where they're earning consistent 3, 4, 5, or even 6K months, or beyond that, depending on how lucky you get with the role as well. And the math just ends up compounding the more you get better with the gig you're on. So that's that. That's the roadmap. Learn the basics, get coached, land a role, do the reps, 4 steps in order. Don't skip any of them. But let me also just give you a realistic timeline, because telling you that you're going to make 5K in 30 days is just not true at all. And you'd have to get very lucky to do something like that. Month 1, you're learning. Maybe you've even landed a setter role by now. Maybe you're still applying. Either way, you're not making real money yet. You're just investing time right now. Now, month 2, you're in a role. You're taking calls and you're probably terrible right now. You are collecting some commissions here and there, maybe 1K, 2K, maybe less, I don't know. Whatever it is you're making, you've just proved to yourself it's possible though now. Now, month 3, this is where things really start to shift. You've done enough reps at this point to be competent. Not great, but competent enough to actually make real money. Most of my students at that point are already at that 3 to 5K mark. And month 3 to 6, you're kind of transitioning into more closing full time now, which is where the upside potential of making 10, 20, 30 grand a month, which is entirely possible, by the way, if you are one of the best. And at that point, the income can genuinely jump from like 5K all the way to like 10K. It's insane. So bear in mind, this is not fast money whatsoever. This is real skill development with real income that comes out of it. That is a byproduct of it, basically. The fast path to money is honestly just a complete lie. And that is the truth. Like, it's just, it doesn't exist. You can't earn money quickly. So I do want to be blunt to you before you get started with any of this. So that's it, basically. You've got the roadmap, you've got real situations, you know exactly how to now start this skill and actually crush it. If you do want my help with anything, I will leave a bunch of links in the description of this YouTube video. We've got trainings, we've got WhatsApp communities. You can apply for my one-on-one mentorship, whatever you want. But the main thing I care about is that you actually learn something today. And if you did enjoy it, please consider subscribing, dropping a like, and leaving a comment if you found it even useful, because it's helpful for me to learn as well. All right? So take care, and I'll see you in the next one.